place where desire manifests. And everything else is about that desire. You see, the material intelligence is working just to help the senses satisfy desire. The false ego is maintaining a sense of identity so that we can, through that identity, satisfy our desires. So this is why the mind is the chief, because the mind is the carrier of the desires. It's the medium of the flow of our desires. And just like Akash, that element Akash is the medium through which radio waves travel. So the mind, which is more subtle than Akash, is the medium through which desire travels. Now coming back to the question of controlling the mind. So now it should be clear that we can control the mind if we control our desires. But how are you going to control your desires? Do you even know what your desires are? And the answer to that question is no. Because desires, as I said, they're stored in seed form, in the subconscious. And we don't have access to that subconscious. We don't have a TV screen, a computer screen for looking down into the core of our heart. So this is a great problem. Can't control the mind until you control desires. But how are you going to control your desires if you don't know what they are? And this is why psychology is so mysterious and so, psychology itself, at least the Western psychology, is itself a form of craziness, which is trying to cure craziness. You see, the psychologists observe how the mind is going this way and that way, and they give names. Oh, this is psychosis, and this is manic depression, and this is neurosis, and they put names on all these different strange activities of the mind. But they don't know why it's happening. Because they also don't know what our desires are. And these desires are always at work. The mind is always rippling with desires. Some desires, of course, we know. They become very prominent in our life. We have this body, prarabdha karma, which is the effect of past activities. And in this body there are propensities. Like here's someone who's a musician by nature. And here's someone else who's an artist, a painter by nature, very good at drawing. So this we can see. This very clear manifestation of desire. But we have so many desires going on. You see, it's a constant hum of desires
Máme pořád spoustu tužeb, které pořád tam honí.
And we cannot keep track of them.
Prostě o nich nemáme přehled.
Many of these desires are only manifesting at night in dream.
Mnoho těch tužeb se projeví jenom v noci ve snu.
And we hardly remember our dreams.
My si to svoje sny pamatujeme.
And yet all these desires, they're somehow or other influencing our waking state, influencing what we think, what we do, how we react to others.
Přesto všechny tyhle touhy ovlivňují náš stav vidění, jak uvažujeme, na co děláme, jak reagujeme na druhé.
And this is why certainly for ordinary people who are not devotees, but even devotees sometimes, we really wonder what's happening to us. We especially in relationships, they get out of control.
Zvláště obyčejní lidé, ale i oddaní se jim vidíme, co se to děje, že zvlášť vztahy se úplně vymykají nějaké kontroly.
You see? Here is someone who, just by walking into the room, we become agitated. We develop an attitude towards that person. And then if that person should talk to us, then our whole consciousness assumes like a karate stance. You see? And he asks us a question, and then the way we answer it, it's like a chop. And we're not even aware why this is happening. It's just happening. You see? And then because of false ego, we'll blame that person. This is very convenient, It's your fault that I spoke like that. There's something wrong with you. Well, he's not going to accept that. He's going to chop back. And we become very insulted. And so this way it escalates. And then, we're telling others, I don't like this person. No one ever want to see this person again. You see? And then with other people, it's exactly the opposite. With another person, we fall into this, completely stupid, dripping, sentimental, friendship or love. You see? And that also we don't know why. And this is the way it is with most people. It just happens. But this is desire. This is the way desire is working. And so many desires are there on so many different levels. And they're all vibrating. And making the mind go this way and that way. It's like if you hold in you take one of these kind of flat buckets, like they make dough in, or put vegetables in. And you fill it up with some water, some liquid. And then you shake it like this. Look at what happens to that water. It's going everywhere. You see, sometimes it's spilling over, but it's always agitated. This is the mind. It's always, vibrating with desire. And sometimes these desires spill over into anger or lust. See? Envy, greed. So, how are we ever, if we want to gain some control over our desires, how we'll do that? We don't know what these desires are, for the most part. But in Krishna consciousness we have a solution to this problem. that there is a basic desire
Existuje základní touha,
that has brought us to this material world.
která nás přivedla do tohoto hmotného světa.
So we all begin with that premise. You know the word?
No,
Premise means like first principle.
můžeme začínat tady z téhle premisy, z tohohle prvního začátku.
You see, rather than laying down on a couch and telling the psychologist who's there with his pen and paper, telling him all about your dreams and why you don't like your mother and all these things, whatever comes into the mind, you just speak.
Jako si lehnout na gauč a oni si vezmou tužku a papír a říkáme, proč nemáme rádi svoji mámu a co se nám zdálo v noci a všechny možné věci, co nás napadají.
You see, and you come in every week and do this for an hour.
Přijdete jednou týdně vždycky a hodinu tohoto děláte.
And then you have to pay him 1,000 Czech crowns or something.
Zaplatíte 1000 korun nebo něco.
And then he's just writing down in his notepad, trying to understand what your desires are. And this is just going on week after week after week without end. So rather than that, in Krishna consciousness, we have to accept that there is one fundamental desire from which all these other desires come out. And that fundamental desire is that I want to be God. I want to be the controller. I want to be the enjoyer. And I don't want to serve. I don't want to serve Krishna. I don't want to serve anyone. I want to be Krishna and have everyone serve me. Even Krishna. That is the desire that brought us here. And all these other desires are just servants of that desire. They all lead back to that ultimate principle. So this is actually the beginning of self-realization. We see in the songs of lamentation of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Narottam Das Thakur, like in Narottam Das's Hari Hari Bipale, Janama Goinanu Manusha Janama Radha Krishna Nabhajya Janya Shunya Visha Kainu. That although I've taken this human birth, I did not worship Radha and Krishna. I simply drank the poison willingly of sense gratification. So he's a great acharya in our disciplic succession. And this is what he's expressing about himself. So we need to see that this is a great lesson for ourselves that we have to implement in our own spiritual lives. Now listen to the words of Gopinath by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Gopinath Mama nivedena shuno Vishaya Durjana. Vishaya Durjana. Vishayi means sense gratifier. Durjana means a crooked person. This is what he's saying about himself. I'm crooked and I'm only interested in enjoying my senses. So these great acharyas show the way. They're going before the Lord and they're confessing that this is the root state of my desire now. And I am powerless to change this
Já nemám sílu to změnit,
unless I have your blessing, unless I have your help.
aniž bych měl tvoje požehnání a tvoji pomoc.
So now let's speak about, in a basic way, the practical method in bhakti yoga of controlling the mind.
Základu promluvíme o praktické metodě bhakti yogi, jak ovládat mysl.
So bhakti yoga, yes, it is a yoga system.
Bhakti yoga je yoga systém.
And in any yoga system, the method for controlling the mind is divided into two parts.
V každém jogovém systému se metoda ovládání mysli dělí na dvě části.
In the Ashtanga yoga system, they use the terms yam and niyam,
Ashtanga yogi používají pojmy yam, niyam,
which means do's and don'ts.
znamená povinnosti a zakázané věci.
So there's something positive and something negative.
Je něco pozitivního, něco negativního.
And similarly in Bhakti Yoga, we use the words vidhi and nisheda.
V bhakti yoze používáme slova vidhi a nišeda.
Vidhi means things that you should do. Nisheda means things that are forbidden.
Vidhi znamená, co bychom měli dělat, a nišeda, co je zakázané.
So, the negative side, nisheda, these are rules, restrictions
Ta negativní stránka nišeda jsou různá pravidla omezení,
that are intended to close all the doors and the windows to material consciousness.
mají zavřít dveře a okna k hmotnému vědomí.
You see, if we keep up a relationship with Maya,
Udržujeme vztah s májou.
then this is like pouring water on the fire of bhakti.
To je jako lít vodu na oheň bhakti.
So therefore these negative restrictions are necessary.
To jsou nezbytná ta negativní omezení.
Then on the other side, there's the positive development.
A na druhé straně je pozitivní rozvoj.
This, in simple language, is opening up the doors and windows to the spiritual world.
Což jednoduše řečeno otvírá okna a dveře do duchovního světa.
You see, instead of looking through those windows and going through those doors, you look through these windows and go through these doors.
Místo abychom se dívali tam těmi okny a šli skrz tam ty dveře, tak se díváme skrze tato okna a jdeme skrze tyto dveře.
And these two cannot be separated, this positive and negative.
A tohle se nedá oddělit, to pozitivní a negativní.
So, because in this introduction we are speaking in essence, I want to say that all of this, the positive and negative sides of our practice, are there in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Když v tomto úvodu mluvíme o podstatě, tak chci říct, že jak pozitivní, tak negativní aspekty jsou zahrnuté ve zpívání Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
So, Srila Prabhupada, in one initiation lecture, he said that we should come to the stage of chanting 24 hours a day.
A jedné přednášce při zasvěcení Srila Prabhupada říkal, že bychom měli dojít do stavu, že budeme zpívat 24 hodin denně.
This is the meaning of Kirtaniya Sadahari.
To znamená Kirtaniya Sadahari.
How to get to that stage?
A jak se do toho stádia dostat?
By practice.
Praktikování.
So, you may think that, oh, this is very difficult. This is impossible. But it is not. Because the holy name is Krishna himself. Yes, it is impossible for us to do it. It is impossible for us to close the doors to Maya and to open the doors to Krishna consciousness. And to only be going in that direction.
jít jenom tímhle směrem.
We're too weak.
Jsme příliš slabí.
But if we surrender to this chanting process,
Když se odevzdáme tady tomu procesu zpívání,
then we are getting higher spiritual power.
tak dostáváme vyšší duchovní sílu.
And this higher power makes it possible.
Tahle vyšší síla je to umožní.
But we must want it.
Ale musíme ji chtít.
And this comes back to the point of desire.
Zase se vracíme k bodu touhy.
See, as we chant, then our desires are becoming purified.
S tím, jak zpíváme, tak se naše touhy očiští.
But you can make this process go much faster
A můžete ten proces velice urychlit.
if you cultivate the desire to be purified.
Když kultivujete touhu být očištění.
Like in one purport in the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada explains that we should become, I forgot exact what word he used, something like fascinated. We should become fascinated with this information of Krishna consciousness. So in other words, we should desire it more and more. And Prabhupada explained in this purport that it's from this that as we cultivate the desire, we will come to the stage of falling in love with Krishna. Because we have been talking about the root material desire, more or less, which means I hate Krishna. But that is not our original desire. Our original desire is that we love Krishna. So, therefore, we cultivate that original desire by chanting. And then we should cultivate it even further by desiring more and more. And then this will lead us naturally to this practice of yoga, of bhakti yoga, positive and negative. As your desire is flowing to Krishna by the chanting, then more and more you'll not desire anything else. You'll desire only to chant. You see? Or to serve the chanting. We have, of course, so many activities in ISKCON, but they're all serving this simple process of chanting. So, in this way, one becomes more and more enthusiastic for the positive. And naturally more and more negative, detached from the materialistic side. So when the desire is flowing in this way towards Krishna, then the mind is becoming purified. So to enter into this, again, we have to practice. In Bhagavad Gita 6:35, Lord Krishna says, O many-armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. But it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So that's again the two sides. Practice means the positive, and detachment is the negative. So you must have this spark of interest in knowing the difference between the pure mind and the material mind. In knowing the difference between pure desire and impure desire.
A znáte rozdíl mezi čistou a nečistou touhou.
Now this brings us to another problem.
Nás přivádí k jinému problému.
That right now, we have only the impure mind to work with.
Právě teď máme jenom nečistou mysl, se kterou musíme pracovat.
The pure mind is always there, of course, but it's now deeply covered.
Čistá mysl je vždycky tady, ale teď je hluboce zahalená.
So we were just talking to you about practice, these nice things.
Jsme mluvili o praktikování těchto pěkných věcech.
But another problem of this material mind is that it does not like to accept any control.
Další problém s hmotnou myslí je, že ona nerada přijímá jakoukoliv vládu.
It doesn't like material control.
Nechce ani hmotnou vládu.
It doesn't like spiritual control.
Nechce ani duchovní vládu.
The mind just wants to roam here and there, do what it likes.
Mysl se chce jen tak potulovat a dělat si, co se jí líbí.
The mind will even come to the temple
Dokonce by někdy šla do chrámu.
and see the deity
Dívat se na božstva,
when it feels like it.
když se jí chce.
Which might be, as we say, once in a blue moon. Which means very rare.
Což může být jednou za hodně dlouhou dobu.
On the night, the moon looks blue in the sky. Then the mind, let's go see Krishna. The moon is blue, Krishna is blue. But at other times, the mind wants to do so many other things. And the mind is always manufacturing this propaganda. Why do I have to just do this one thing? Why do I have to just stay in this one place and do this same occupational activity over and over again every day? Why do I have to just be with this group of people? Why can't I go wherever? Now, when you think about this, you will understand why there are 8,400,000 species and why they are positioned on a wheel which cycles through the whole universe, includes every planet. This whole arrangement is there just for this nonsense mind. The mind is never satisfied wherever it is. Wherever it is on that wheel, it always starts to think about, it would be better if I was somewhere else. And this again goes back to desire. And this is why the soul is going round and round. It sounds like punishment, but it's actually what the soul is desiring. Because the soul has accepted material desire as its guide. The soul has given up the spiritual desire, imagining that only by being a materialistic rascal can I be happy. So now we're overwhelmed by material desire which can never be satisfied. Thus our minds are always restless wherever we are, and always nagging us. Why only this? Isn't there more? Isn't there something else somewhere? Why are you only staying here? Well, let's go. Let's find something new. You see? In this way, the mind drags us. Maybe it would be nice to be a dog. What's wrong with being a dog? In fact, years ago, in our ISKCON preachers, I guess you're still doing it in Czech. You have these big music festivals where young people are acting like dogs. So I remember going to such festivals with devotees, and we'd preach.
jezdí na různé festivaly, kde jsou lidi jako pejskové a taky jsme jezdili takhle kázat na takové festivaly.
And some of these persons will come and argue. What's wrong with what we're doing here? We're enjoying life here, under the sun. Why you're preaching to us that this is, bad for us? And then the devotee will try to give some, very like hammer answer. And by these activities, you'll become a dog in the next life. How is what you're doing different from the dogs? Well, look at you running around, even I don't know about here, but in some places they take off all their clothes. Running around naked like an animal and just doing the things that dogs do. They eat chunks of meat, garbage food, and they have illicit sex out in the open, and they howl. This music you're listening to, it's just dog music. And then the person will reply, what's wrong with being a dog? And I remember many years ago, one Maharaj in such a situation, he was addressing such questions from a speaker platform at one of these festivals. Devotees had a corner at a festival. So he had brought out the dog hammer, and someone replied, what's wrong with being a dog? And then Maharaj, he said, well, would you put your nose where a dog puts his nose? And this person said, well, if I was a dog, I would. Like, it's okay for dogs, nothing wrong. So what's wrong with being a dog? So this is the mind, you see. This is the nonsense mind. Oh, why not be a dog? Well, what would it be like to be a fish? Yeah, anything. So therefore, 8,400,000 species. So, and it's very ironic again, because the mind is making these arguments in the name of freedom. But this so-called freedom is dragging the soul into bondage life after life. So yes, the mind is in this way very, very stubborn. It doesn't want to give up his so-called freedom. Doesn't want to give up his so-called attachments. And this is going very, very deep, right to that original root again. So you see, this you need to know about the mind. Because as we're practicing Krishna consciousness, it's something like stripping away layers, of subtle conditioning. And in the beginning it can go very easy. We strip away, we pull away all the gross attachments. Because we were already sick of them anyway. See, more or less the mind was fed up with this, what we call ordinary karmi life. And the mind was also, the soul is drawn to Krishna consciousness, but the mind comes with. The mind is thinking, well, this is something new.
Už je připravená vědomí Krišny a mysl je sebou. No to je něco nového, si myslí.
So the soul is telling the mind, yes, let's get rid of all these attachments.
Takže duše řekne prostě, no tak zbavme se všech těch připoutanosti.
And the mind says, yes, yes, I was sick of these things anyway.
A mysl říká, no jasně, mě už to stejně nebavilo.
So very good cooperation.
Velice pěkná spolupráce.
But then you start to go deeper, deeper, deeper.
A půjdete hloub a hloub.
And then your friend the mind starts to understand, wait a minute. This is me you're working on. You're going into me. And you are trying to change what I'm about. And then the mind can become very difficult. And that could be years later. You know, after we're all fixed up and, you know, first and second initiated and all these things. Been practicing Krishna consciousness nicely for years. And then suddenly we seem to run into a wall. Where the mind is protesting very strongly. Yes. So, what to do? Yeah. So, you have to, you see, this is where, hopefully, at that stage, if something like that happens, our intelligence, buddhi, has also developed. Mm-hmm. So, with buddhi or viveka, discrimination, we have to see our real desire. You see, I was telling you that ultimately desire is spiritual. But our spiritual desires become perverted. And that's why the mind is resisting spiritual life. The mind is perverted. The mind is becoming very desperate that, you know, if you take away my freedom, then we'll cease to exist. You see, this is, we think of, in the conditioned state, we think of existence in terms of the mind. We think I am the mind. But actually I am the soul. And actually my desires are pure and spiritual. And it's by good intelligence, good discrimination, that we can see into our original pure desires. Mm-hmm. So in this way, you can, so to say, preach to your mind from the position of intelligence. That, my dear mind, yes, you want to be free and that's good. But freedom is not acting as you want to act. That is bondage. Just as I was mentioning this morning, Srila Prabhupada was explaining about little children. They also want to be free. Just play, not go to school. So the guardian, the parent, has to preach to the little child that if you don't go to school, then you are going to be in bondage. You're going to get into trouble, for one thing. But suppose you were able not to be educated, then you'll grow up foolish. And then what will be your position? You have to think about your future. You see? So in this way, just like you can gradually show a child its best interest, make the child understand.
ukázat dítěti, co je jeho nejlepším zájmem.
So by good intelligence we can also make the stubborn mind understand what real freedom is.
Stejně tak pomocí inteligence můžeme té tvrdohlavé mysli vysvětlit, co je skutečná svoboda.
Krishna consciousness. And of course intelligence also means to, and Prabhupada gave these kind of examples so many times, it means also pacifying the childlike mind by tricks.
Inteligence také znamená, Prabhupada často dával ty příklady, že to je stejné jako uklidnit dítě nějakými triky.
This is also permissible.
To je taky možné.
That my dear little child, if you go to school today, then when you come back, you will have some nice halwa for you. Oh, very nice. All right, I'll go to school. Okay. Or like a friend of mine in Mayapur, his daughter started school. And she also didn't really want to go to school for the learning. But what she liked seeing the other children who were going to school, that they had books under their arm and they had a lunch pail. Lunch, the lunch box.
Že se jí líbilo dívat se na ty jiné děti, co chodí do školy a chodí v jednou ruce podpaždí s knížek a v druhé ruce jako nějaký ty nádoby na sídle.
And she became very attached to having these things. So her father said, yes, you can have them, but you have to go to school. So she agreed, and she was so happy, going to school, holding these things, being like the other children. But then when she actually got in the school and saw what was going on, then she threw a terrible, tantrum. She started crying so much that the teacher had to call the father. He had to go there and take care of her. But after a few days it was okay. The mind is like that. So, even if by trick you can get the mind to cooperate, and by this buddhi to convince the mind that it's in your best interest to do this. And especially, and this will go into hopefully in more detail, especially there is one thing, and this we're concluding our seminar today on this point. And that I told you that there are three aspects to the mind, and this is the basic psychology. So there's the thinking, cognitive, and then on the other end there's the active, willing, and in between there's feeling. So the great Acharya, Sri Ramanuja, he has given a very, very nice explanation of the psychology of Bhakti Yoga. And he has explained that of the three functions of the mind, the feeling is the leader of the other two. And this is a fact. You see? Sometimes, you hear people are analyzed, oh, he's an intellectual, he does everything by thinking. And this other person, well, he's a working type person. But actually the real fact is that everybody is a feeling person.
Ale ve skutečnosti je to tak, že každý je cítící osoba.
And what we think about and what we do, this depends on our feelings.
O čem přemýšlíme a co děláme, to závisí na našich pocitech.
And this is explained by Srila Prabhupada in his introduction to the Nectar of Devotion. And where he says that human beings are doing what they do because of what? Rasa. So rasa means taste. It particularly means an emotional taste. You see, so in the material world everything is predominated by the rasa of sexual attraction. And this is more or less what people are thinking about. You see? I say more or less, I mean some people are thinking about it directly. And some people are having, great thoughts about so many things, but it all comes down to just this anyway. And this is also why everyone is acting. Mm-hmm. So, therefore, Ramanujacharya has very intelligently pointed out that it's the feeling part of the mind that is predominant. So to pacify the mind, to make the mind cooperative, we have to be always flooding the mind with nice feelings. And we have this opportunity in Krishna consciousness to generate the sweetest type of spiritual experience. By the kirtan, by the prasadam, of course, and by nice devotee association, and by nice service to the deities, making all nice arrangements for Krishna conscious atmosphere, and going out also and preaching and attracting people, and seeing the transformation in these people. So this is all very sweet. So by making sure that we flood our mind with the sweetness of Krishna consciousness, the mind will be satisfied. So this is the real, here in these seminars I intend to speak to you this science, this Bhagavata science of psychology. And this is philosophical, and it can be dry. But it's very important that you know these things. But I want to stress this, that all the way through, you see, the whole point of this is just so that we have some, shall we say, intellectual reasons. We have some intellectual understanding why we have to cultivate Krishna consciousness very nicely, so that we're always experiencing this higher taste of devotional service. Because this is the key for keeping the mind happy and peaceful and cooperative. And in this way, this nice way, the mind will become purified, spiritualized. And when it is completely pure, then that is your Krishna consciousness. That is your pure consciousness, your original consciousness. So this is essential to keep the experience of Krishna Bhakti tasty, to keep the process of devotional service a very joyful experience, like a party or something. This is expert psychology. If Mangal Arti is like coming to a party for you, then you're the most expert psychologist. Because your mind will be so happy. The mind likes to go to parties. The mind likes to have fun. So we have to show the mind that this is where real fun is at. See, and that's the real point of all this that I want to present in these next days. To give you insight into how to deal with this mind, which is ultimately not, it shouldn't be very difficult. We just have to know those techniques for bringing forth the bliss so that the mind will be happy. Alright, so I'm going to stop my presentation here. By the way, what is the time?
10 to 1. 10 to 1.
10 to 1? Wow. And I thought this was short. Now, like I said, I have enough material to go for 20 sessions, not 5. So when is prasadam? What's the schedule? Oh, 2:30. Okay. All right. So then we can take some questions now. If it's 1:45, we can go till 1 o'clock. But normally, when would the next seminar start? Aha, so I'm overtime. So tomorrow I can't do this. Tomorrow I have to be more careful. Okay. So we can have, if you have questions, you can take them now. We'll not go beyond 1 o'clock. Yes?
We still would like to hear more what's the mutual influence of the gross and subtle body.
The influence?
Mutual, how they influence each other.
Mutual relationship.
Yeah. Whether the gross body can influence, for instance, negatively the subtle body.
Yes, of course. This is, it's good that you asked this question actually, very good. Because now I can speak about something that is in my material but I wasn't going to present because I was thinking there's not enough time. But now you just created time by this question. And so this subject matter is dealt with very nicely in Ayurveda.
Že tímhle tématem se pěkně zabývá Ayurveda.
So Ayurveda, being Vedic, it starts with Atma Paramatma.
Ayurveda, jakož je védská, tak začíná Atmy a Paramatmy.
It starts with the understanding, like I was saying in the beginning of my talk, that the pure state of consciousness is Vasudev Sattva.
Začíná tím, co jsem říkal na začátku svojí řeči, že čistým stavem vědomí je Vasudeva Sattva.
Pure goodness without any touch of Rajaguna and Tamoguna.
Čisté dobro, nedotčené Rajaguna a Tamoguna.
And Ayurveda understands that all disease begins as soon as there is Rajaguna and Tamoguna entering into our consciousness. And Ayurveda understands that actually this body itself is a disease. You see, that's why Ayurveda is the best system of medicine. Because it treats the body itself as a disease. So you have the bodily constitution, Tridhatu it's called, the three substances. This Vata and Pitta and Kapha, which is translated generally as air, as bile, and as mucus. Kapha. Yeah. So this is what makes up the gross body. And what these three basic substances are, I mean, they can be understood as mucus, bile, and air. That's all right. But there is, a higher dimension which goes to the modes of nature. These dhatus are, or doshas, are mixtures of the five elements. And Ayurveda explains how the five elements emanate from the three modes. So this is, very nice science. And so each of these three substances of the body, they're mixtures of modes of nature. So the Vata is goodness mixed with some passion. And the Pitta is basically passion, with some admixture of goodness and ignorance. And Kapha is basically ignorance mixed with some passion. And all three of these things they have to be in the body. But according to our, conditioning by karma, under the modes of material nature, we've got a body which is can be classified as more of one than another. So in Ayurveda, there are 7 basic body types. And so you have 3 of the 7, which are more or less the pure. Either someone is, a real Kapha, a real Pitta, a real Vata. Yeah. So for each of these, you see, that state is influencing the mind. So and Ayurveda goes, very, very deep into the psychology of these different types. And they're even explaining the mental diseases that are associated with these body types. And then from these three basic, then you get another three, which are mixtures. Like someone will be kapha pitta, for example. A combination. Anyway, each of the next three are a combination of two. And then that's six. And then the seventh type is very rare. That's a person whose doshas are completely balanced. And in Ayurveda, that's as healthy as you get in this body. So that's rare. Anyway, 7 types. And then Ayurveda says, on top of that, that there are 16 types of mind, which are basically divided in the 3 categories of sattva, rajas, tamas. And so you've got 7 types of sattva, sattvic mind, and 6 types of rajasic mind, and 3 types of tamasic mind. And these types are classified according to great personalities like Brahma or Varuna. This is in the sattvic category. There's a Brahma type mind, there's an Indra type mind, there's a Varuna type mind. And then in the Rajasic you get also 6 personalities that are in the Rajaguna. Great personalities. Rajasic. Yeah. And similarly in the Tamoguna. Some great tamasic personalities. So there you could use that fancy word archetype. These personalities are the archetype of our human consciousness. And so then you've got this type of mind combined with a type of body. And they interact. So everyone knows, that Ayurveda explains disease in terms of these doshas, these 3 elements, they get out of balance. For example, Vata. Vata is a combination of Akash and Vayu, or ether and air. So the mind moves, you see, the mind moves in Akash. Yeah? This is where the mind does its business. Just like I'm sitting on this seat here. And this seat is made of this stuff. And on this seat I'm giving this seminar. So the mind sits on a seat of Akash. And it does its thing from there. So this Vata dosha is very much associated with the mental functions. So in Ayurveda, diseases of the mind are generally disturbances of Vata. This is a general explanation. You find this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya was showing his ecstasies And sometimes it's being said that, oh, he's suffering from a disturbance of the bodily airs. Mm-hmm. So this is just one example. Mm-hmm. So each one of these three doshas, they have some effect upon the mind, the way it works. And naturally the mind affects the body the other way. What time is it now? 1 o'clock. All right. Then we stop. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Suhotra Maharaj ki jai.